Hey, so I
Right.
here we go. Last week, okay, the recorder's on. Okay, last week we
I always hated that. It's like I studied Maseches Beitza, and I would talk to my Hasidic friends, and they would tell me, well, they also studied Maseches Beya.
there you go. Yeah, certain words I guess we're trying to avoid. Uh,
Yeah.
it is what it is. All right. So the last week, Sif Aleph, we had completed a good chunk of the Mishnah Berurah. We had a little bit left, and I guess wanted to review it. Just to go over, because again the whole shear sort of depends on the gzeira that was made here. That by Chazal, which we talked about last week. So I'm just going to actually reread this Shulchan Aruch part at the beginning. We also read the Aruch HaShulchan last week. That a lot of what we're going to learn right now is not our reality. Richie, there's a seat right here over here on the next to Tommy. Is not our reality, which is important to know, because if you've been reading a book on Friday night, you're okay. But let's take a look here again. So just then, starting from the beginning of Ayin Reish Hey, and then we'll go to Sif Katan Dalid in a moment in the Mishnah Berurah. Ein Poland ve'ein koren b'sefer or haner. We're not supposed to remove light or read by the light of a candle. And and even if you're not reading out loud, you think, well, maybe I won't concentrate so hard because I'm not trying to get every word. No, you're trying to get every word. You're just saying it in your mind. And the whole fear is here, shemayata, perhaps you will tilt the candle, bringing the oil towards the wick, strengthening the flame, and that is a prohibition of mavir, of kindling a flame on Shabbos. Right? It doesn't have to be that you create a new flame. Even just adding and increasing to the flame is a problem. So here, where the rabbis made a gzeira to prevent us from coming to an issur d'oraisa. Even if he's 10 stories above this light, or I would say even by the reverse also could be true. But you're so far away from this light, holy guy, love. You're not even. It's impossible for you to touch it. There is no differentiation. Chazal made a gzeira. It's a gzeira across the board. Low plug, what we call. Even if it's in a crystal or glass case, still, I'm going to go stick my hand there. Not so easy, right? Still not allowed. O kavua bechor shebakosel, or it's in a fixed place in the hole in the wall. Also not okay and not permissible. And then we have here a vachain, and also not for the same reasons of shemayate, or at least according to some, of that perhaps you'll tilt it and that will cause this flame to increase. But also another type of flame is a problem. Vachain bener shel shava. If the candle is made from wax, it's also a problem. We saw last week that the problem was not Shema Yata, but Shema Yimchot. Perhaps you will remove the top of the wick, which maybe had been burned out, and you're trying to get, to increase the flame, and maybe by doing this, right, it will help the flame grow. Though actually at the beginning, as according to the Mishnah Berurah, it'll be turning out to be mechabe. You're actually going to cause it to diminish. It's also a problem. The Aruch HaShulchan had said, and by the way, the problem is actually mavir. Maybe it's maybe at the beginning you're also diminishing, which is a problem, but it's also going to then increase the flame. That's the whole point. The reason you're fixing it, or you're instinctually fixing it, is because you want to increase the light. You don't want to decrease your light. If you were doing something that decreased it, you wouldn't do it. But it's perhaps a problem with both mechabe and mavir.
I'm sure you'll get to it, but it seems to me it's very analogous to the Shabbos lights. That you turn it and you increase the light.
But those are, yeah.
So why is that okay?
Those are on from before Shabbos.
But so is your candle that you're gonna tip and remove it.
But there, the difference is that the light in the Shabbos lamp is consistent. What changes is how much I block it. It is my, nothing is changing about the light. Nothing can possibly change about the light except if you flip the switch, right? But when you have the candle that's like, let's say by the wall, whatever, and it's all around the room, and in there you're trying to adjust, then it becomes a problem because the flame is actually changing. That's actually an important point. I think we saw last week in Aruch HaShulchan at the very end. The distinction is here when he talks about the gas, lights that are being used in most of their homes. It's consistent. The flame is consistent. Moving it, touching, adjusting, it doesn't work unless you adjust the whole thing. By the way, probably for them, they didn't ever know. I don't know if they had such fancy things like thermostats where they could start to play with things, or So that would be it for. I didn't mean thermostat. I mean just like the level of the strength of the light. Look, we have dimmable light bulbs, right? We have dimmers today. I don't know if they had that, in the days of the Aruch HaShulchan. I'm not sure. I don't want to, guess, but.
But Rav, you're still touching the light and you're extending the period of time. Are you going to also say to me that because I want to sit in a more comfortable chair, I can pick up my candle and move it without increasing the light?
No.
Is not the candle itself muktzah?
Yes.
So then why isn't Hinda's question valid? Why should you be allowed to extend the time of a Shabbos clock?
That's the light.
Whoa, sorry, that's a different question. Shabbos clock, extending it actually is going to come up in maybe 2 simanim from now about gram kibui. Reishai and Zam, the whole topic about shelo ligrom kibui haner. You're not allowed to cause. Not like directly, but put into motion something that will put out the flame. So we'll talk about that. That does relate to the Shabbos clocks, the Shabbos timers. But Hinda was asking about the Shabbos lamps. Right, that's what I get right. Yeah, that like the twist. There's again that nothing changes about the light. The only thing that changes is how much I'm blocking light, how much I'm not blocking light, and the way the mechanism is set up is that you can't be again unless you use the switch or something like that. Which that's there's no zero on that. I mean, as long as there's a consistent source in the Mishnah Berurah, the source of light is consistent, such that even during the week when you are doing activities like reading, you wouldn't just willy-nilly adjust it, right? Then it's mutter. Now, I know that some of the Shabbos lamps by their very nature are adjustable in the sense that you can increase and decrease the light, but the source of the light is now changing. What you're allowing to come through is changing. That's different here.
But you can't pick it up and move it to another side of the table, can you?
The Shabbos lamp? What was that?
Perfectly would say once.
Yeah, you can, because
in certain situations, but like
it's like it would be like any muksa. If you get any, I guess, klisha melachto leiser letzorach gufo letzorach makomo, you can move it. Meaning that like you can move it if I need the light over here, because nothing will go out, or by moving it, nothing's going out. But also, it's not like I guess he wants to say it's not like a candle where you create like a situation of a basis and then the things like, because it's not the nature of it is not the same. Okay, interesting. All right, so there you go, Rabbi. We have Ari Leibowitz report here that to move it would be, I guess, probably let's start with Makomo, let's start with Gufo, right? If you needed it or you needed the space. Okay, all right. So now let's take a look at Sif Katan Dal. That's what we got to last week in the Mishnah Berurah. Ner shel Shava, right? This wax candle. Okay. Sif Katan Dal in the Mishnah Berurah. So down below. It's my edition. Yeah. Right. Well, right. What you're doing is but interestingly enough, the part you're touching is a separate part. It's its own little. It's on a swivel. And you could say that you're actually not touching the part, or not, muktzah is not touching. Muktzah is about moving. There's that famous, I've shared the story of Soloveitchik about the touching. But, so you're not really moving the light fixture part of it. You're moving something that's on a swivel. But again, if you have,
It's something that's been designated before Shabbos for Shabbos use.
yeah, oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to come.
Yeah, well, we will definitely come back to when we come to the topic of Shabbos timers. I'm sure we'll get to the turning off of Shabbos lights that way. Okay, so here we have this fifth Katan. Okay, Shel Shava v'habach b'shem Rashal Shalom Luria Kosav denogu lahakel livdo kelim v'tzitzis likros eitzel ner Shel Shava. So here, unlike what we said before, where we're not supposed to, as the Mishnah Berurah and Sif Katan often said, don't check your tzitzis. Don't check things that require tzarich iyun, right? That require like more closely looking at something,
Inspection.
right? Inspection, right? Here, the Rashal, quoted by the Bach, says we're lenient to check kalim and tzitzis and to read by the nair made of wax, which is a complete disagreement with the Shulchan Aruch, which is not unprecedented. I want to make that point in this situation here. It's not like nobody ever argued with the Shulchan Aruch, aside from the Ramah. There were those who didn't agree. Now, sometimes they don't make it they didn't make it, but just understand that it's not always like, oh, the Shulchan Aruch says so, the discussion is over. And here's an example of that. V'hu adin eitzel ner shel chelev. And this is also the law when it comes to a flame made with fat. Okay, I've never used such a candle. I don't know if anyone has experience with that around the table.
Animal fat.
Right. V'hatam, and why did the Rashal allow this? The ner shel shava, the ner shel chelev, devazeh lo shayach shema yateh, rak shema yimchot. There is no fear of shema yateh, lest I'll tilt it. Rak shema yimchot. That's the cutting. I'm going to cut the top of the wick, and we said again previously in the Mishnah Berurah, V'nim said that's mechabe. That's going to cause the flame to dim. Now, what's interesting is I told you that the Aruch HaShulchan had said that the problem was not just maybe mechabe, but it's actually right mavir, and that's and we'll see in a moment, that's actually a big problem for the next part of the svara that's going to be used here about reasoning.
But even if they're on, so how can they
Get around the wax piece?
I think they allow this.
Because the gezerah was made in the context of the ner shel shemen, an oil candle. But if you have the wax candle, right, that's not sourced in quite the same way as coming from the Gemara. So
it's not liquid.
I wanted to extend the logic and say, yeah, this makes sense too. And he says, I don't know about that. I'm not so sure. And why? And now he's about to tell us the reason. Because why? No, there's no fear of tilting when it comes to a wax candle. Well, you got to tilt it. It's going to make a big difference. By the way, we'll make a case that that'd be a can in a moment. So don't answer my question because I actually think it can make a difference. But maybe there's no differentiation here. Rack, there's only shema yimchot. There's only this whole fear that you'll cut the candle, cut the wick. This will cause kibui. And now there's a concept here that I think I've introduced, but it was a long time ago. But it plays its role across Hilchot Shabbat, not just in this instance. So, okay. And a good thing we have Reb Ariel here because he's more fresh, probably having learned in the Smicha Hilchot Shabbat than I am. Okay. Well, we'll find out in a second here. Okay. The kibui, have a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa, is in a category. Most of the time, the prohibition of kibui of extinguishing a flame or decreasing of that flame, is what we call a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. It's a prohibited labor that you don't need the thing in which you acted. Meaning, the classic example given in the Gemara from Malacha She'ein Tzricha Legufa is I dig a hole because I need the dirt. Right? Did I get that right, Ariel? You dig a hole, and you don't need the, sorry, you need the, sorry, but you need the, I always forget this. You
You need the space under the candle.
digging, and I don't need, it's not that I don't need the trench, I needed the dirt or something like that, right? Exactly. I needed the, so I didn't need the thing that, I didn't need the malacha, I needed the thing that wasn't, it was the thing that got removed as a result of the malacha. And there's a machloket of the Tanoim in the Gemara about a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa. Rabbi Shimon says that it is mutter. It's mutter, or no, sorry. Is it mutter? Is it, maybe it's potter of a lusser, right? A malacha she'ena tzricha legufa is not a itzra d'oraisa, put it that way, right? You don't owe a korban. Now, I think it's Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you're chayiv. Even, you have to bring a korban. It's a serious violation of the laws of Shabbos. So again, I want to clarify. I don't remember what Rosh Hashanah says, but I thought it was Pater of Alasser. Maybe you remember? Yes.
Makes me want to do Qadar.
Okay, right now I got to do something, but it was over 10 years ago now for me. But I have to look up that Mishnah. Okay, but it is according to Rabbi Shimon, it's not an Issa d'oraisa. It's maybe what we call in Hilchot Shabbat Pater of Alasser. Okay, which means like you're exempt from the korban, but with the Rabbanan, please don't do that, right? And Rabbi Yehuda says it's a problem. Most poskim hold like Rabbi Shimon, except one big posik, and that is the Rambam. The Rambam paskins like Rabbi Yehuda that a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa you're chayav. So what was that? If it's a psik ratio, so there's a different category. Then there's a davar she'ena miskaveh. Where there's something I didn't intend for. I didn't intend for X to happen, right? Well, if X has to happen, then it's upgraded to a psik ratio. There is a category where we could say it may happen, but it may not happen. If it's not a guarantee, that's called a davar she'ena miskaveh. So I want to open the refrigerator. Well, that's the psik ratio. If I know the light's going to go on, that's a psik ratio, right? But if I open the refrigerator, is the motor going to kick in right away? It's not clear to me that it'll kick in right away. Or, right, that with this one action, it will 100% cause the next thing to happen. If the answer is no, maybe it's 90%, 95%, then that's a davar she'ena, something I didn't intend for. I was doing this because I needed to get to my chicken. I don't have any care whether the motor goes on now, it doesn't go on now. What do I care? If it goes on in immediate response, which is not the case, I'm giving a bad example, but that's the davar she'ena miskaveh, that's mutter according to Rabbi Shimon. Mutter, right? When we pass in that way, that's mutter. If it's a psik ratio where there is a consequence that will certainly happen as a result, even though I don't intend for it, I don't care about it, right? It's not my care at all, right? The funny example is the chicken. Of course, everyone knows that's the source that psik ratio comes from. Your child needs a toy, you cut. Don't ask for such toys, okay? Okay, that you want a toy. So what do? You go to the backyard to the coop. You cut the head of a chicken off. You say, here's a toy, the head of a chicken. And you didn't think that the chicken was going to die? Of course it was going to die. And you can't kill on Shabbos, any animals. So that's an example of psik ratio where then it's austere. Even Reb Shimon would say it's a problem. So, anyways, but going back to this, so kibui is the malacha she'ena tzricha legufa because I don't need. Because what do I gain out of the kibui? When is it tzricha legufa with kibui? There's only one case. It's when I need the coals, when I need the what's left over after it's the source that's left over. If I'm going to use that for something, so I extinguish the flame, and now I can access the pecham, okay, the coals. So the kibui have malacha she'ena tzricha legufa, v'lo have iser deoraisa, and it's not a biblical prohibition. Again, except for everyone, except for the Rambam, but okay. Again, everyone seems to paskin against the Rambam. V'chein kosav ataz, and this is what the Taz writes as well, that The reason that they're making it is because what are we protecting against? We're not protecting against an Isser Doraisa. When you're talking about, I might tilt it, that's an Isser Doraisa. If I'm protecting against an Isser Derabanan, am I going to put a Gezerah on an Isser, to protect me from an Isser Derabanan? According to the Rashal, that's too far. We don't need to go that far, right? When there's no need, so don't start playing games here. Don't start. It's a wax candle. I don't have to be machmir. If there's a real need, you have to feel to see something. You need a reason to do tzarech iyun, to check or inspect something or read something that's important. Then fine. Yesh omrim the kiboy have malacha deoraisa. Right? Because there are those, the Rambam, who say that a malacha the kiboy, even though it's malacha shen tzricha lagufa, for the most part, it is not an Issa Doraisa, as we say at the end of Shin Lamed-Dal. I'm just going to send to Shin Lamed-Dal for a second here in my edition. Yeah, go ahead, Ariel. Right. By the way, actually, it is at the very end of Simon Shin Lamed-Dal. Very long simon. If you have a fire that's going in a place where people could get hurt, right? If you can extinguish it. If it's a danger to the public, whether it's the source of the fire is a metal or it's the wood. But the Harambam oser b'shaletz. See, the Rambam doesn't like that. Because if you knock out the fire that's with wood there, so now you have leftover wood that can be used for another fire. So the Rambam doesn't like that because then because even though you weren't putting out the fire because you wanted the wood to be used for another source, nonetheless, he says, Malacha she'ena tzricha leguf. I don't need the thing that I acted upon. Nonetheless, it's still Asa Doraisa. So again,
How does that relate? Time we learned that if there's a fire in a house, you're not allowed to put it out. So how you just said that if it's dangerous,
yeah,
then you can do it. But if it's fire in a house, you can't.
So I will tell you that I remember my Rebbe, and I feel like everybody agrees to this nowadays. If there's a fire in a house today, you could be mafab by the fire, because the biggest difference is in the days of Chazal, their houses. Think about even the change in the floors. What were their floors made of? They were dirt. They were dirt floors. You had a fire on something that was on the ground. It may not actually spread. So and also the fire, the materials upon which their houses were made, our houses are highly flammable, and that's why anyone will tell you. Maybe I'm wrong. At least my Rebbe said, "There's a fire, you put it out. There's so much danger that can come, even because I'll get out of the house. I'll let my house burn down. The next house is going to burn down, right? It's not. And then God forbid somebody that it's pikuach nefesh. And so I think a little bit of the Metzias here has changed in terms of what houses and the situations of living were like in the days of Chazal, where they said, yeah, you can't put out the fire. Whereas that makes sense. Right? If you have a fire that could damage the public, that you could put it out, right? Smoke and the smoke also, smoke inhalation, exactly. So if I think that some things that they'll say, oh, you could get out quickly. It's true, but also the fires today. Again, you think about a house can go up in flames so quickly, and yes, and there's things people's lives are in danger. We just know it from right. Yeah, if we have gas, in a house, it can cause an explosion. Correct. There are all sorts of things here where I think that the Metzias in many ways has changed. But like, it's not a question what you do anymore.
Rob,
okay. Yeah, Simeon.
Rob, I think your Rebbe was absolutely right. I don't understand the contra of thinking. We have a klal of pikuach nefesh docha Shabbos kula, and if you have a fire, every fire in the world that ever started with a spark, started small, and in some cases you had whole towns and whole countrysides burned down. So pikuach nefesh docha Shabbos kula. I don't think the halacha's intent was ever to put life or property in danger.
Well, I agree with that statement, except for one at the end. Meaning, I agree. I don't think that statement was ever intended to put lives in danger. Though I do think I think that statement of Chazal when it comes to not putting out fires, I think actually they are okay with your property being damaged. Not they're not happy about it, but like they're they will allow it to happen. If there's no threat to life, I think that was the big topic there. What can you save? What property can you take out with you that maybe you wouldn't be able to move on under other circumstances.
Simeon, think of the scope of the adjustment.
If that was the case, then I would want the fire to spread, wouldn't I? That's creating more business.
Right, exactly. Okay, so that's in terms of here. Now again, if you hold that there's also mavir with regards to the Shema Yimchot piece, the cutting, then this whole argument falls away because then there's no malacha. Then it's a malacha d'oraisa. In addition to this, it's the rabbanon.
The mere fact that you might shut some of the light kibui, right? Kibui on this situation. It's like you can have. We're talking about having a house burned down. What about using candles? You're allowed the candle to burn. You're allowed to do that. But you can put the zera off the candle.
But it's only like. There's no gezerah of like we're worried you're going to do this because the worst thing that happens if you do it is the only to the rabbanon according to this argument. That's why the Rashal argues that the gezerah doesn't extend. No, we can't extend the gezerah to wax, and that doesn't make sense because it's not the same calculation halachically. There's no deoraisa we're protecting from, so therefore there's going to be the gezerah doesn't extend. You can't. But it's only deoraita unless you like the Rambam. It's only deoraita if you want the pecha, if you want the source of the fire, the wood, the coals, right? If you need that, if you're putting it out because you don't want the light anymore, or you're doing some sort of adjustment, that's a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa, and that's not okay. But it's only nissa d'Rabbanan. Put it that way.
I like that. I like the use of the word only, Rav. Very good.
It's only nissa d'Rabbanan, right? Exactly. It's a nissa d'Rabbanan. Okay.
That's why, if there's a sick person in the room, no one's darkness. I mean,
We're gonna get there. That's right. Very good. See, Tommy reads Bameh Madlikin on Friday night. I know it. Okay. Because that's right. You can put the Mishnah says we'll get to this. It's going to be in the upcoming Simonim that you can put out the flame for if there's a sick patient who needs it. It's extremely important. You can put out the light. That's Rabbi Yossi's halacha, and very good. And the svara behind it is malacha she'en tzricha legufa. Yeah. For a sick patient, if they need that in order to be able to rest, it's for their healing, for their recovery. We're going to see it. There's a statement about it coming up, about putting it up for a sick person. It's Reish Ayin Chet, Sheyachol Lechabot Haner B'Shvil HaChola. Yeah. Right. If the chola is the life's in danger, they say there's sakana though. But we'll talk about that for more. But very good. Okay. All right. Let's finish this comment of the Mishnah Berurah. So v'hayel yarabba kosav v'shem hamalbusha yom tov. The vener shel shava shayach gam kein shemayata. So the Eliyah Rabbah writes in the name of the Malbusha Yom Tov that we don't agree with the Rasha. The svara of shemayata does apply to wax. Vehevi lazeh simuchin midivrei haramban. He brings something that kind of supports this from the Ramban. V'chein kasav beveir hagroim of Vilna Gaon held this way. The vener shel shava. V'hu adin shel chelev shayach gam kein shemayata. You can still tilt it. Now, I actually see this without having, by the way, for those of you who have this, my edition of the Mishnah Berurah, you can look at number 13 for some more explanation here. But he thinks that it's relevant. I think it is too. I see my Havdalah candle every night, every Saturday night. What happens? The liquid pools there. Yes. And then the flame actually gets smaller. If I want the flame to get larger, what do? I take it and I tilt it. I tilt it so that it spills, and then I get a bigger wick, a bigger flame, I should say. So
Bigger wick, causing a bigger flame. Yes,
correct. There's more wick exposed, which gives me a bigger flame.
right.
On there, like you're tilting it to get
To
another,
get more weight, yeah.
to get more wick, so that's a little bit different than what he's saying.
What do you mean? Explain.
I mean that, at least this is, you could correct me if I'm
No,
wrong.
no, no. Go ahead. Yeah.
You have, let's say one wick is lit, like, okay,
Yeah.
let me try to speed up the process, try to get the second wick lit as well, or whatever, however many.
Oh,
And then it ends up creating a bigger fire.
oh, for sure that because you're going wick to wick. But I have this Havdalah candle where the liquid, as it melts, because it's like almost like a mountain,
Oh, okay.
and the liquid starts to pool, and if I tilt it, I actually free up more wick on both wicks, and this creates a bigger flame. So if you have certain wax candles, if you think about those big wax Friday night candles that my mom used to like, back in the day. I don't know. They was talking about the Friday night, the white ones. Okay, those there was no tilting involved. Like also the way they cut it was such that it kind of peaks at the top. But if you have a candle that you imagine that you're probably you're putting on shelves all around, and they're slowly going down. You can imagine that there is liquid that is pooling. The melted wax is pooling there, and if you want to make the wick. Make the flame larger, or you're going to have that natural instinct, which is what they're protecting against here, right? Don't read by this light because you might do this, right? That is probably something you do on Tuesday, on Wednesday, if you're living in those kind of societies, and that might happen with wax candles, where again it's not like shaped like this. It's probably like a big. By the way, what's an example of a candle like that? The Shiva candles, right? Those 7-day candles, okay. Those pool wax at the top. That's why the candle, if you ever notice, sometimes you go to someone's house who's sitting Shiva, at a certain point, the light doesn't look as strong as it did on the first day. Okay? Right. Unless you start pouring the liquid wax out. Okay.
But that's same
Yeah.
true with the gas lights. If you increase the amount of gas that comes in, the flame goes up. So when he says we don't have that problem, it's still the same issue.
I hear. Look, I think that the difference is there that if I set that up from before Shabbos, that a light that is, let's finish this. He's actually about to talk about this right now. Okay, good. Thank you for the perfect segue. Anyone want to guess what that is? Actually, the bottom is his definition, right? You have the Tirgum. Ner mechomer be'erazach. Okay, it's a flame that's from materials that it burns very well. I think it actually is the word sterno, right?
Oh,
yeah. Right? What is a sterno actually? Is that a chemical? I'm actually asking. I don't know. What is anyone know? Oh, you can look at what material is in there. But if you ever, I'm just look how he describes it. They're really good. He just says they're good lights. Hatovim shalanu are really good lights, which are called stern. Motor likros lifneihem lekuli. Everybody agrees you can read next to this light. Everybody agrees. And in my extra comments, by the way, at number 14, so you have it. V'chein likro leor chashmal hamiyutzar al yedei generator. See that? Generator. Okay. Yeah. Methanol. Okay, you have some chemicals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's methanol. Can cause blindness. Okay, good. Yeah, this is here. Yeah, right. But if you ever look here, thank you so much. If you ever look at the a candle like that, by the way, it won't change. Like it will remain consistently like what it is. And that's the point, the key here. It will remain consistent. An electric light, the holiday generator. This is like Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Says according to the Mishnah Berurah, the reasoning using an electric light powered by a generator is mutter. Okay, even though sometimes you need to fix the generator. He says you don't have this in front of you unless you're number 14. So you got to fix the generator. And that's, I think, also the difference here. When you're going to adjust the gas, it's not like it's right next to you. When they, in the days of old, right, when there was no such thing, the candles were all over the house, all over the shul, right? So you were near it, right? The lights that produce for us, the switch is all the way over there, right? And the idea is like it's not like that, like instinctual. I'm gonna touch it because I got to walk all the way over there to make the adjustment. And that's why he says, even though sometimes you got to fix these lights, it's not like hatayas haner. It's not like I'm just going to tilt the candle. That's what we're not worried about it, right? And by the way, it's also, what do I do during the weekdays? Do I normally fix the lights of the generator? Says there of Shlomo Zalman during the weekdays. No, I don't fix the generator light, the electric lights. Yeah, sometimes the bulb goes out. Sometimes I have a connection to connect. Sometimes it's spotty connections. I get a flickering light, but that's not. I'm not normally doing that, right? So therefore, the gezerah doesn't extend to that because that wasn't the gezerah. The gezerah was because I might do the same thing on Shabbos that I do on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay.
And
Yeah.
Rob, that's the rationale many people have for covering the knobs on the stove that they remain lit a whole Shabbos. That something could be put on it and they might accidentally make an
that's correct. Yes, it's shema yachata begechalim, right? It's perhaps you will stoke the coals, or in our situation, you'll adjust the flame when it comes to the food. But that makes sense because why? Because I'll be near the food. I'll say, "Oh, the food is it's not. It needs to, it needs to be hotter." And since I'm standing right there, I might do the instinctual thing of yachata begechalim. I might stoke the coals. So I think that the svara, adds up there as well. Okay. So he says, Mutter likros liftei lekuli back in the Mishnah Berurah, Delo shayach shemayata. It's not fitting to say shemayata. Perhaps I'll tilt it. Rak b'davar shedarko lahatos lifamim b'chol kadei sheyidlak yafe. Unless I do that during the week to also adjust to get a good flame. Uvener stern yadua the ein sarich lahataya klala. Olam everybody knows that the stern lights, right? That nobody is doing hataya at all. By the way, if you what Ariel just what Rab Ariel just handed us a moment ago, if you touch that, a game over. That's not good for your hands. Okay, so you're not gonna Also, there are certain things like light sources you don't want to get too close to. Again, we have switches often now that are controlling the things, but you imagine that by the way, that probably leads me to believe that the sternos what he's talking about here, this kind of thing where if you get too, that he wouldn't do that at all. But also, what am I I'm gonna cut though? This doesn't make sense to cut it, right? It's a solid, good flame. Why? The oro salul meod. The light is clear, very clear. The light's good. It doesn't. There's no going down and up and up. It's a consistent, clear flame. And I think in our situation, our lights are consistent, clear flames. Yeah, sometimes they might go out. We're not worried you're going to change the light bulb on Shabbos. It's not a fear we have. And even I would say by the Shabbos lamp, where the switch may be not too far away from us, if you're using a Shabbos lamp, you probably already have it in mind that it's Shabbos, right? And also that light is consistent. It's not changing. And so I think that in our situation, it is very different. So let's now go back to the Shulchan Aruch. Let's go to Sif Beis. Let's keep going. We're in this world, which maybe is not our world so much, of the Ner of Shemen, and within that world there are more halachos to understand. It's not just simply you can't read 100% of the time. There are exceptions to the rule. Sif Beis. V'dafka echad, aval shnayim torim biyachad. This is only when there is specifically one person who's reading. That's when you can't read by the light of an oil, lamp. But if there are two people reading together, you're chavrusa, you're reading over the same book. We're sitting next to each other, in the way that like Aviva and I are right next to each other, and we're reading. We're reading the Torah, we're reading some book together. By the way, we'll talk about what book we're talking about. That's also matters here. Okay? If it's two who are reading together, and I am like, our candle is right here or something like that, reading this book, and I start to reach my hand up, she's gonna go, what are you doing? It's Shabbos, don't do that. Right? And we're reading the same book together. So she is very aware of my movements. She sees I'm going for the light, and because perish lahatos haner kadesh yagi Hashem l'psila, right? One of them is going for to adjust the flame. Yas tirenu chavero, the friend will say, no, Shabbos, don't do that, we'll be okay, don't do that. Okay? Oh, right, it's Shabbos, okay, right, thank you for reminding me. But the only reason that Rabiva could do that, is why? Because we're literally on the same page. We're looking at the same book. We're reading the same thing. So she's also aware of what's happening with you. She can protect me, right? She's got hashgacha on me. She's got, oversight of one over the other. If I'm reading a book and she's reading a book, and we're reading our own thing. She's reading, she's learning the Gemara over here, and I'm still, reading Gracious Bar Elohim, because, Aviva is way more advanced than me. So then, she's got her own thing going on. I'm over here. She's not paying attention to me, even though we're sitting next to each other. And therefore, if I go to adjust the light, she won't notice. So therefore, the only time it's mutter is when there are two people who are reading the same thing. Then we think that when we say there's shmirah. There's shmirah. We're watching each other.
They're not only reading the same thing, but they're reading the same thing from the same single source.
Yes. Now, I cherry picked here because the Ramah is about to say that. It's clear from the fact that the Ramah has to chime in that perhaps I took too much liberty here, okay? But maybe Aviva and I, right, are reading the same book, but we're actually next to each other, and she's got her own copy of the book. Even that the Shulchan Aruch, that the Shulchan Aruch would think probably is okay because we're chavrusing, we're learning together. But the Ramah says the following: V'yesh omrim de b'shnei svarim afilu be'inyan echad aser. But there are those that say that if you're using two books, even though you're learning the same thing, aser, no good, right? Because you're going to get distracted. You're going to start looking at she's going to start looking at the Rashi down below, and we're learning the same thing, but we're using two different books, so we're not paying attention to each other. If we have the same book in between us, then we're paying attention to each other by the very nature of this is how we're doing this right now. But if we're in our own books, even though it's the same inyan, the same matter, it's aser. And now we have an interesting application of this law. And it's so fascinating because it's so not how our lives, we don't think about this because of how our lighting system works. Therefore, it is prohibited to recite piyutim, liturgical poems, on the night of Yom Tov that falls out on a Shabbos. Now, if it's a Yom Tov itself, it's not a problem because you can adjust lights on Yom Tov. Okay? So there's no fear. But if it's on Shabbos, the Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos and there are special piyutim, you're not allowed to say, what's going on here? Why can't I say the piyutim? Excellent, Steve. You don't know them. I know the Shabbos mirrors. We sing the Shabbos mirrors every week. So if I don't see it very well because the lights are not so well lit, I'm not Shema Yatang because I know it. I don't need to. But if it's the Yontif night and we're sitting around at home or in the shul and I don't know the Yontif, I don't know these nigunim. I've never. I'm looking in the thing like what page? 873. We know that part in the back has additional piyutim which you never open. There's a reason you've never seen them before because they're all the way in the back. So if you're saying these piyutim once a year, you don't know them. And therefore you have to do tzarech iyun yofe. You have to do tzarech iyun gadol. You have to look carefully. I got to look at the words. And once you have to look at the words, now you need light. A consistent, clear light. That's why. But it's Yom Tov that falls on Shabbat, correct. Yeah.
Not remembering, Shabbat.
Yeah, by the way, even further, exactly. Even more, right. Yeah, the words on the piyut. By the way, a great example of this is on Shavuos. When we in shul, we say Akdamos.
All night.
Right. We're saying Akdamos all night. Right? Akdamos, I don't know if I ever heard it, ever pronounced correctly. The words are like tongue twisters, and it's like, nobody knows what it means. Right? Even if you know the Hebrew, I think it's you need the light. imagine if on, Shavuot, you have such things like, and there are piyutim for every, by the way, there are piyutim for every yontif. There are piyutim, by the way, you see it here in our shul. We have these new machzorim for the Shalosh Regalim. Every one of them now have all the piyutim in it.
Right.
We skip them. What? What was that?
Like Yoga.
Yotzro, yeah.
There's the Yosras also, but like in the machzorim of the like, for Mariv, the brachos at the beginning of Mariv, there's an extra paragraph there in a gray box, right? We don't say it here, but if you've never said that the rest of the year, and now you have special piyutim to add in, you are going to need to look carefully at what the words are, as opposed to.
Everyone feel really good. Get there.
Correct. That's why we bought. That's why we bought it. We wanted to be. Oh, look how fast Dominic is going now. Yeah. Anywho, so that's an interesting little tidbit halacha here. Now, take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. Shnayim Korin, where it's Sif, Katan, Hey. Aval ein Polin, im lo she'echad mifalev hasheni mishamro, shezeh vaday muter. Now, what about if there are two people sitting next to each other and want to get their lights off of my jacket, my shirt, my whatever it is? So we said ein Polin before when you're not allowed to do that in general. What if there are two people there? So you still can't do it unless person number two is your shomer. You tell them, I'm checking for lice right now, which probably may scare them and they'll run away. But but even if they don't run away, number two is going to be a shomer. Yeah, Steve.
No,
Yeah.
lice are okay to
Remove.
check.
Yeah.
Why? What's the hashashis that you might kill?
The lice.
what's there?
The louse. Yeah.
Right, but it's okay to kill lice.
Yeah.
But it's not okay to kill fleas. So you really be worried about fleas. So why is
The
it
unintended consequence.
lice in the Gemara are not, they came from what we call spontaneous generation, from sweat.
Right.
They don't reproduce.
Right. So it's not like killing an animal.
Right. They don't come from other lice, they come from.
Right. Right. Right.
But fleas different, they come from other.
Fleas are sourced from they have parents. Okay, interesting. I wonder if the Matthias here on that one would be different now that we understand that that's not how lice come about. What was that? Yeah, yeah, interesting. But-
That was still saying today, wise lice then would be even more of an issue then, no?
To check it, to get rid of it, to kill it.
Yeah.
It would be if unless we hold of that svara, it would be a problem to kill the lice on Shabbos.
Right.
Unless you want to make the argument that lice carry diseases and therefore there's another potential, problem,
They carry diseases that,
No, not
Please, Mike.
they're just annoying in camp,
right.
Please can carry the disease. Please can carry the disease.
Right, like if there's a fear of, I'll state this for the record. Rabbi Weeder once said in the shir that he thought it was permissible on Shabbos to kill mosquitoes because they not infrequently, it's not like every mosquito bite you get a disease, of course, like that's not the norm, but we know that there are diseases like West Nile virus that get transferred by mosquitoes, and there are to kill a mosquito because there is a potential of
Pikuach nefesh?
yeah, I mean, like those are, yeah. I mean, you as a doctor, you can tell me West Nile virus is a very dangerous, virus to pick up. So because of that, he felt that because there are occasionally mosquitoes it's not the norm. People get mosquito bites all the time in the summer, but because that can come along with a very deadly consequence on rare occasion, he thought that it was mutter
like that's, I'm getting into some gray area.
of
Other bugs that carry issues, like,
such as what are some other ones?
I mean, I'm just thinking of like any bee or anything like stings.
Oh, if there's well, right. If you have a tick, you do need to act on that, right? That can come with Lyme disease, very serious, that can
Be a hornet.
like in the house,
Yep.
right? But that's like the snake example that's used in the Gemara. If a snake is that's where he got the idea. If the snake is potentially poisonous, right? That the bite of the snake would cause an issue. then they cause potentially a serious issue. You're allowed to kill the snake. If it's not a poison, if you can know and ascertain that it's not a poisonous snake, then you can't touch it. That you have to let it curl around your leg, and But
Your leg.
so I would actually say this. I'm going on a limb here. Al regalachas. If you know somebody in the house is allergic to a bee sting, they could have an anaphylactic reaction that could be deadly. I actually do think it's mutter to then kill the bee because it's like the snake where it's.
My mom knows.
Oh yeah, she's allergic to a bee sting.
Yeah.
I would think that because of pikuach nefesh of the person in that situation.
My mom's gonna kill them. But yeah.
Right, but I think Al Pisvar should be okay. Actually, halachically also. The question is like I think it doesn't have to be that person also who kills it. I think if there's anybody around who's killing it for that reason, then it should be okay. I don't know how we got off on that, but okay. Well, I mentioned the mosquito thing, right? Okay. Anyway, so you have here the second person is the shomer. Then shezavadai mutter. Then it's okay. Go ahead, check for the light. Vav yaskirenu chavero, right? Unless that your friend will catch you. If you're reading together, your friend will catch you and mention, hey, don't do that. This only applies when we're talking about reading. Shehu milsa the mitzvah hitiru bazeh, and only not any kind of reading, mitzvah reading. You're reading something that is a mitzvah. You're learning Torah. You're preparing the laning for the next day, and you're reviewing with the person. Right? You're doing some sort of it's a kriya shel mitzvah. Or by the way, maybe you're reading the kriya shema. Or I don't know. You're doing some sort of mitzvah reading. That's when it's allowed. Aval lo le'inyan reshus, but not if it's just pleasure reading. That, even if you're reading together with the friend, that is not going to be allowed. Kain cost of the Magen Avraham. That is what the Magen Avraham states. Midivrei hataz, siv katan gimel. The Taz says, even if it's a dvar reshus, it should be okay. And by the way, I think my extra comments here. Where was it? I think it was number 17. Right. Is B'divrei Magen Avraham shehuvu halan hisbar dam acher dal shel hutru ala kriya shel mitzvah v'lo hutru dvarim shel reshus. B'tam hadavar hataz, right? The kevan shekol echad mefala b'makom acher domim him l'shnayim akorim b'shnei inyanim. Right. Right. When you're checking the light, that unless you actually appoint a shomer, no one's paying attention to you. Like I'm doing my own thing. Like you're checking for lice, check for lice. So, but if you appoint a shomer, I think here, even the Magen Avraham, I shouldn't say it, but like for Magen Avraham, but I think the Taz's svar is that if I'm appointing a shomer, right? If I have that, then even if I'm reading a book and this one is watching me, I'm reading even Devarim Shel Reshus, then it should be okay. But I guess if we're each reading our own, Davar Shel Reshus, we're all each reading our own book for pleasure, for sure that's not okay because that's not paying attention. But even if it's together, it's a problem unless one of them has truly been assigned to be a shomer. Okay.
It's interesting, Rav, that the sefer that the Mishnah Brewery uses chavero.
It's about to come up. Actually, I don't know if we'll get to it today, but in Sif Gimel, it comes up about ishto. There's a havamina to say that your spouse doesn't help you in this situation because, as you can see in Sif Katan Yud, if you want to just a little sneak peek, daita krova etzlo. We always hang out. Like we're always near each other. And then I'm not gonna actually. You're not paying attention. Like you're not like, like I'm not paying attention. Like like you're doing your we're like I'm not thinking about your actions. Like, but if two friends, like we're not all often reading together or I'm noticing you're about to grab it. Oh, don't do that, right? Because in that situation, you're saying Tain datcha alai, watch me, make sure I don't do this. But if you're always hanging out with each other, there's a havamina. I think if you're always hanging out with each other, your default is you're not paying attention to those things, right? Because you'll hang out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, not just on Shabbos, and you're not thinking like, oh, I have to be careful to watch the king. By the way, at the end of the day, we say that's just a havamina. At the end of the day, if you tell the spouse, please, watch, make sure I don't, make a mistake, it's actually okay. At least there's a havamina, but it wasn't. Okay. Sorry, let's finish up the Mishnah Berurah's comments on Sif Katan Beis. Zion, Osir. That this is the Ramah's, the halacha mentioned by the Ramah, that two books, even about one thing, is problematic. Shekol echad me'ayin b'sifro ve'enu mashgiach b'meh she'oseh chaber. I'm looking at my sefer. I'm not looking at what my friend's doing. So if he or she starts to go for the Shema Yateh, I'm not paying attention. So it doesn't work. That's the thought behind that, which makes sense. It's a thought that seems reasonable. Lach v'lachein sif katan ches. This comes back to the piyutim, okay? Even according to the Rashal and others who are makil about the ner shel, a ner of fat, animal fat, or a ner that's wax. Hacha beveis hakneses, in the shul, the shechichei rabim, right, where many people are there. Yesh lahacher bechol gavna shelo lomar hapiyutim mishum lo plug. This is a halacha that people will take to the bank. A shorter shul, no piyutim, right? Only at night, guys, because there's only no daylight, right? There are those that are machmir to not say any extra piyutim because of a rule of no differentiation. Because sometimes the candles are going to be the lifamim yen neros shemen. Sometimes the candles are oil candles in the shul. Sometimes they're wax, sometimes they're chalev. But because sometimes they might be oil. Shemayata. People might come to another time, learn the wrong habit here of trying to get too close to the candle, adjusting the candle. So with any light source in the shul, we do not say piyutim in shul. Okay? Because we don't want anyone to come one time to do the prohibition of yateh, of tilting the candle, and it should say isser d'oraisa. Umasha kosav lomar piyutim. And that which it says to say piyutim, who hadid has miros she'omrim b'shabbos b'bayis. That applies on Friday nights in your house, saying zmiros on Shabbos, unless imlo mishiragil k'tas b'hem. Unless I always say zmiros, and I know zmiros, so that when this Friday night comes around, right? Also remember, that was not infrequent during like this time of the year. They ate on Friday night and there was still daylight. In which case, this whole gezerah doesn't kick in when you're dealing with daylight. Right? And therefore, they may have had some familiarity with Zmiros from the spring, summer, time. So what if in the winter now they're saying they want to sing Zmiros? You can. If you're a family that knows the Zmiros, you might have the bencher and there's some lights and maybe it's not perfect, but doesn't matter. I'm not going to tilt the candle. I know this. I know Tzur Mishalo. I know Yom Zaman Mechubar, whatever it is. I know it. I'm not gonna shemayata because if I don't see the next word, I know it. We sing Zmiros in my house, right? Kamosha Kosov Sif Test, and we'll see later in the Sif Test. Later in the Sim and Sif Test. What's another example of where you'd be in real trouble? Real trouble. If you couldn't read at nighttime. A Shabbos that falls out on a particular holiday where you need to read. Pesach night. Let's read the whole Haggadah. What if Pesach falls out, the Seder falls out Friday night? Well, according to this, how would I be able to read the text of the Haggadah by the light of candles? Today it's not a problem, but in the days of old, how could they do it? So we'll see when I get this out. I'm sorry for the spoiler. But Leil Pesach Shechal Yos B'Shabbos, if you look at Sif Test, you can turn the page if you want to. Mutter Likros Haggadah B'Sefer. Why though? Mipnei, Mishum Dahave Ke'ein Rashi Prokim. He says, I kind of know it a little bit. I know. Oh, right, we're up to this part. I know Masad Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Yehuda, I don't even know. The ain't why? Because he says the ain't Amar Shalot to Hey Shkur B'Fiv K'tzas. When it comes to Haggadah, there's not an Amar who doesn't know the Haggadah a little by heart. That's a fascinating line. That as kids we grow up and we start to be able to hear it from our family. We know it. He says, there's no Amma Aretz that doesn't know the Haggadah a little bit by heart. And therefore, it's once I know a little bit, I'm not tilting the candle. I'm not worried because I know it basically enough that I can, I can make my way through the Haggadah. So that's an interesting, halacha, and that's why it applies to the Zmiros as well. Again, not in our situation, right? Or the other way you could get away with Zmiros is, O she'omer lachavero, tein datcha alai shelo ate. You assign one person at the table as to be the person who says, don't sing, your job is to watch us sing. And you make sure that we don't tilt the candles, right? Okay. Pes, sorry, I'm going to very quick, I'll finish quickly. Beveis HaKnesses, Perush, afilu sham diyesh rabim chashina lahataya. What do I mean? We're in shul. Isn't like a million people here? They'll be like, don't tilt the candle. Believe me. If somebody makes a mistake in shul, right? You have the laning. There are people in the back row. No, wrong. And then people who will love to correct, like, so you tell me that the shul, there's so many people, there's not going to be somebody who's going to yell, don't do that, right? Right? There are so many and yet we're still worried about hataya, right? Even though there's so many people, certainly an individual in their home, right? A smaller setting, for sure you can't do this aval. What about davening? How do I daven Mariv though? How can I daven Mariv from a sitter on Friday night in a shul where it's dark and they're using the candles? Which was the situation for Jews for hundreds and thousands of years. They used candles. They didn't have what we have. And the answer is, Bal Shar HaTfila, Mutter Likros B'Sidr L'Or HaNer, V'atam She'Tfila Mitzuya B'Fi K'Hakol. Because we hear davening all the time. Mariv is familiar to us. There are some slight differences on Friday night. In the Seder Shomer Amo Yisrael Ad, we have Hapor Sukkah Shalom, etc. And yeah, the Shemona Esrei is a little bit different, but I'm generally aware of how to say the words. So therefore, since it's common in the mouths of everybody, the Ein Tzarech Iyun Rav, and I don't need to look carefully in the siddur so much. Therefore, it's allowed. V'havei kemo Rashi parashios specifiot. It's like what we talk about later in the Siman about being familiar with something mostly, and so therefore, even though I don't know every word by heart, it's okay. So that is the Sif Beis. We'll stop here.
Excuse me,
Learn with everybody again.
Rav,
Yes, go ahead.
before you close it down, this year, this morning, technologically,